and we will start now. Sir, let me introduce you myself. I am a chartered accountant named Rajesh Dua. I have an experience of around 24 years post qualification in direct taxation, and I have worked on income tax, corporate taxation, transfer pricing, withholding taxes, fringe benefit tax, and all this I have done in a corporates. So I have never been into practice, but I have been into corporate, and the corporates I have served is named like Motherson Sumi Systems, Moser Bear, Hindustan Zinc Vedanta Group, and currently I am working as a retainer with Vedanta Group. I have been part of direct tax committee of PSD Chamber of Commerce currently also. Apart from that, I have been nominated for regional direct tax committee of FICCI and CII, and northern region direct tax committee of FICCI, and direct tax committee of northern region committee for direct taxes for CII. And apart from that, I am also a member of International Fiscal Association. And my work field has been basically outbound, inbound transactions, withholding taxes, international tax, and particularly transfer pricing. I have dealt huge cases on transfer pricing. This is my first ever attempt to interact with the people in profession, so that because of this lockdown, I was just getting a little, not finding enough space for interacting with people. So I thought this medium would be a good medium to start with. So I hope that you people will appreciate my efforts on this. And let us start with the introduction of section 195. There is an overview of section 195. Section 195 to 195A have different, scope into its has a different scope in its provisions. So let us discuss section 195(1) first, which is the scope and condition for applicability of this provisions, and then we will move ahead for 195(2) and 193. So what section 195(1) says? Section 195(1) says any person responsible for paying to a non-resident or a foreign company any interest or any other sum chargeable under the provision of this act shall, at the time of payment or credit of such income to the account of the payee, whichever is earlier, deduct the income tax thereon at the rates in force. So what practically it is saying? It is saying that am I audible to everybody, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Rajesh ji, go on.
Okay, sir. So what it is saying, that any person, any resident person, it is not saying resident, it is saying any person. So any person includes a non-resident also. So any person responsible for paying to a non-resident foreign company any interest or any other sum chargeable under the provision of the act will have to deduct a TDS at the time of credit or at the time of payment, whichever is earlier. And the rate would be rates in force as per Income Tax Act under section 237. So this section is not applicable to head income from head salary, and rest of the other kind of payments it is applicable. So one has to be very sure that it is applicable to any sum which is taxable in India. So let's go to the next slide, sir. So it is saying that the scope and the applicability of this section means that it is applicable to any sum other than salary, all types of payment covered, whether it is domestic withholding provision. One more important thing is that it is applicable to any sum. There is no threshold limit for making TDS payment. So even if I'm making a payment of 20 rupees, I have to deduct TDS on it. So there is no threshold limit, minimum threshold limit for applicability of section 195. So I have to deduct any amount. It is applicable to on payment by resident to a non-resident, as well as a non-resident to non-resident also. So how it is works when it is non-resident to non-resident? Suppose some non-resident has a fixed base of place, fixed base of permanent establishment here in India, and he is making a payment to a non-resident outside India. In that case, he will be treated as a non-resident in India because he is not a resident, but he is making payment to another non-resident outside India. In that case, also he has to deduct TDS. So it is not that a resident has to deduct; a non-resident may have to be deducting TDS on this. Some, as we have already discussed, it is chargeable to tax in India. Apart from this, it also says that section is applicable wherever it is more beneficial to the payer, to the payee, or DTAA between India and the country of resident of that payee. We will discuss this later on. So it is very clear that the payment is to deduction is to be made at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier, and the rates are provided in the Income Tax Act as per section 237, rates in force. Sir, here there has been a controversy to the meaning of a person, whether a person includes resident or a non-resident, or whether or not. In the case of Vodafone International Holding, which is reported at 341 ITR 1 section Supreme Court, this is a landmark decision which actually prompted so many changes in the Act in 2012, 11-12. So any person before at that time the Supreme Court has decided in favor of Vodafone, saying that any person does not include a non-resident who does not have a place of business in India or not. But later on, there has been a controversy. Finance Act has reversed this decision, and they said that even if the person is not having a business connection in India or any presence in any manner whatsoever in India, still he will be deemed to have been included in the meaning of any person since 1962. So what does it mean? That it is a retrospective amendment by Finance Act 2012, and they have clarified very clearly that since, after 2012, everything will be covered under any person will cover any non-resident also, and it will always be deemed to be included since 1962. So this controversy is now put to rest, at least for the coming years or the current era. Sir, I am not going very fast. I hope so. Hello.
Ajay ji, so far I am concerned, it's pretty okay. I don't know about the other people.
I'm asking, generally asking if
guys, please respond to Rajesh ji.
Yeah, okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Let me. Now, question arises: if I am making the payment or making a, I'm not making a payment directly to the payee, but I am making a credit to suspense account. So what is the position in that case? In that case also, the position is that if I am crediting to a suspense account, it will be deemed that I am making payment, I am crediting it to the account of the payee. So I need to deduct the TDS or withholding tax at the time of suspense account also. So suspense account, if I am making a credit to suspense account, even if I have to deduct TDS on that. Then we have another provision in the section 95 that in case if the government is making a payment or public sector bank is making a payment or public financial institution is making a payment to a non-resident, in that case the tax will be deducted only at the time of payment, not at the time of credit. So this is the only exception provided in the Income Tax Act under section 195, where government is making a payment, that too interest, only interest, and public sector bank or public financial institution making a payment to a non-resident, at that time, they are required to deduct TDS only at the time of payment, not at the time of crediting to the account of the payee or suspense account. And from 1/4/2020 onwards, deduction is required to be made under section 195 on payment of dividend also. So earlier payment, because of dividend distribution tax, there was no TDS on payment of dividend, but now it is also made mandatory that one has to deduct TDS. In case of non-resident, most of the cases the rate of tax on dividend is 20%. But there are certain financial institutions, etc., certain institutions where the tax rate is lower, or there are sometimes no tax also. So there is a complete list, and we are not discussing that at this point in time. So what is the meaning of chargeable to tax? As per section 195, the payment is only taxable in India when it is chargeable to tax. This has been case in many decided cases also, where GE India Technology Center, Transmission Corporation, CIT versus Eli Lilly. In all these cases, it has been decided that tax is only deductible from the payment when it is chargeable to tax in India. If it is not chargeable to tax in India, there is no requirement of any tax to be deducted from that. And there was a question also before we started that, well, if the payment is not required to be taxed in India, in that case there is no document requirement. Okay, so next is that there is section 90 subsection 2, which provides that in case there is a treaty between the country of India, between the country of resident of the payee and the Indian between government of India, that in that case, if the rates which are more beneficial to the payee will apply. So in case but for that there are certain documents required that we will discuss later on in the same discussion, sir. So what does it mean by rate in force? So rate in force has been defined under section 237(3) of the Income Tax Act. For the purpose of this, it says that either the rate as per Finance Act for that relevant year, or the DTA, whichever is more beneficial, that will be applicable. Circular 728 dated 3/11/95 have also clarified that the TDS rate under section 195 shall be applicable if the DTA rates are more beneficial. So there is a double confirmation. Act has also provided section 94, section 92, section 90 subsection 2, then section 237 also provided the similar thing, that the rate which are more beneficial to the payee will be applicable in the case there is a DTA exists between India and the country of resident of that payee. सेक्शन 195(2) में आते हैं सर. अब सेक्शन 195(2) में the payer can apply for the lower tax deduction. Here I have divided this into 4 categories. Who can apply? Under section 195(2), the payer, the person who is responsible for paying to the non-resident can apply for a lower tax deduction rate. When to apply? If the payer consider that the whole or any amount is not taxable in India, either in whole or in parts, then he can apply. The difference between the two is that if the income is not taxable in India at all, then in that case I need not apply for section 195(2), because in that case I am pretty sure that this income is not taxable as per law. But if I am not sure that whether this income is taxable in India or not, or whether any part of this income is taxable in India or not, or full amount is not taxable in India, then I need to apply for a lower tax deduction certificate from the income tax officer. This applies to every payment which is being made except salary income. And there is a prescribed format for making a application to the income tax officer, so that he can determine, and after making an application, the income tax officer may ask you for many information like projections for the income tax, projections for your income, global income, and so many other things. And because of that, the payer of the income in India may not be in possession of all the information which is required by the income tax officer. So getting a certificate by a payer of income tax is payer of income to the non-resident is little difficult, because he doesn't have the information which may be required by the income tax officer at the time of determining the proportion of income in the payment being made. So generally, payer are not keen on getting this certificate. They basically ask the payee to obtain a certificate under section 197, so that whatever information income tax department asks from the payee, he has all the information and he can provide. But in case if the payer applies for a lower deduction of tax, the difficulty faced by him would be that he will not be getting a full assistance from the payee. So this is my observation, because in one of the cases I did that, and I got this this issue. So, sir, in continuation of my section 195 when to apply series, the G Technology India Limited 370 to 327 ITR 456. They applied for the SSC company was a distributor of imported pre-packaged shrink wrapped standard software. During the relevant assessment year, it made a payment of software supplies to and did not deduct TDS under section 195. The revenue held the SSC as a SSC in default for failure to deduct tax at source. The department raised before High Court that since the SSC has not applied for a certificate under section 195(2), so he is not allowed to make payment without deduction of tax, and he cannot. The SSC is not allowed to contend that this income was not chargeable to tax in India. In this case, the Supreme Court held that under section 195(1), the word chargeable under the provision of the Act means that there is no liability, consists of words chargeable under the provision of the Act. No liability to deduct tax arises if the sum is not chargeable to tax in India under the Act. So, if the income is not chargeable to tax in India, there is no liability on the part of the payer to deduct tax on the amount which is being made by payer to the payee. So in that case, where there is income, the income is not chargeable to tax, so there is no need to even apply for section 195(2). This Supreme Court held. Whether the and it further fortified his order by saying that where the person is fairly certain that the payment can be made, that he can make his own determination whether the income is deductible at source or not, it should be what should be the amount thereof. Then he can, if he can himself make a determination that income is not taxable in India, then there is no need for section application of making an application under section 195(2). In another case, Madras High Court in Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewage Board held that without getting a TDS certificate from under section 195(2) or 197, the payer cannot determine a lower tax himself. So there is a condition where there is a no tax at all. This income is not taxable at all. I can make a payment without deduction of tax at all, from that payment. But if I am doubtful whether if I am sure that this income is taxable in India, but I cannot determine myself that which part of the tax income is taxable in India or not. Okay, the difference is income totally not taxable in India. I can determine, I can pay tax, I can make payment without deduction of tax. But in case if the payment is payment, if I determine that it is taxable in India, but then I cannot decide the rate of tax, lower rate of tax. For that, I need a section 195 or 197 from the payee side. Similarly, in the case of Raymond Limited versus DCIT, ITT Mumbai also held that the payer cannot decide himself that the part of the income is taxable and part of the income is not taxable. So for that, section 195(2) certificate is required. Similarly, there is another case where the certificate under section 195(2) was issued by the income tax officer, but that was not cancelled. So the as a participant, the payer was making another payment. In that case, he took the benefit of the previous certificate. So and did not deduct TDS or deducted TDS based on the certificate earlier issued. So in this case, Punjab and Haryana High Court has decided if the assessee has a valid certificate, he can use that certificate and for the subsequent payment also. So there is no need to apply for second time. And since he has followed the uncancelled certificate under section 195(2), he is not an assessee in default for making payment to the non-resident at a lower tax rate as per certificate. But in case if the certificate has been cancelled later on, or in this particular case, Bilda Nuo, it was detected that at the time of applying under section 195(2), the the payer has not disclosed certain information which were relevant. The information which was not disclosed, that the payee was not the beneficial owner of the payment being made. What is beneficial owner? So suppose I got a certificate, I got a particular invoice from party X, and I'm making payment to party B, and I am applying for certificate under section 195(2), but I did not disclose that the payment basically will ultimately reach to A. I'm making payment to B, but it will reach to A. I did not disclose it in my application. In that case, it was held by the Bombay High Court that since the assessee has not disclosed the correct information to the assessing officer, the certificate issued under section 195(2) is not valid, and it is not continuing. So any payment made under this certificate is subject to TDS, and the department in this case has basically taken a plea that payment has already been made to the party outside India. The Indian party should be treated as a representative assessee and should pay tax here in India. So that was held by the Bombay High Court, that if any certificate has been obtained by hiding or by not disclosing all the information, in that case, the section should be the Indian payer is liable to tax in India. Hope I am able to convey my meanings to the participants, and everybody is basically is participating into this discussion. Any question till this time? Any questions?
So I think it's Rajeshji, it's going pretty fine.
Okay.
So probably we can have the question answer session if required at the end.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So I'm encouraged by your participation, and thank you so much. And now I'm
sir.
Sorry, sir, could not understand.
Our pleasure.
Oh, thank you. So now I will take up another slide. Uh, Liability of the payer. Now, while making the payment, the payer has to ensure certain things. The one thing that he has to certain is that in case whether income is taxable in India Act, uh, then he has to make the payment as per the act. But if the income is not taxable as per treaty, then he has to ascertain the eligibility of a non-resident to get the benefit of the treaty under the treaty between India and the country of residence. So it is the duty of the pay and payer. So and that liability is uh, he has to ensure to mitigate this liability. The payer has to ensure that he collects information which is required as per section 90 subsection 4 of the Income Tax Act, and that provides that in case you are making payment to a non-resident, you need to ensure certain documents, and the most important document is TRC, tax residency certificate, from the country of residence of the payee. So tax residency certificate as per section 94 one is very important. Apart from that, there are certain other documents which we will cover in the next slides. One important point I just want to make here is that in case if I am making payment to a branch of a country of a payee, if I'm making payment to the branch of a payee, then the treaty between India and the head office of that payee will be treated as applicable. Suppose a bank, I'm making a payment of interest to a Singapore branch, whereas the head office of that bank is in UK. So then treaty between India and UK will apply, not India and Singapore. And another point which I'm just just bringing in it here, that if I am making payment to a branch of Indian bank whose head office is situated in India, say State Bank of India, I'm making a payment to Dubai branch, but its head office is in India, then I need not deduct TDS at all from the interest payment made to that country. I'll share one important case which I handled. In this case, basically, we were making payment of 100% interest to a bank in Germany. Germany bank was a bank like Exim Bank in India. That bank was basically an export promotion bank of Germany, government of Germany, backed by the guarantee of government of Germany. So it was not the income of that bank was not taxable in Germany, but the entire loan which was taken by the company was not financed by this German bank. Only 30% of the loan was financed by the German bank. Rest 70% of the loan was financed by a UK bank, an Australian bank, and a Hong Kong bank. So the ratio was 30, 20, 20, and 30. So 30% was from Hong Kong bank, 30% was from UK bank, 20% from UK bank, 20% from Singapore bank, and then 30% from German bank. But we were making the entire payment to the German bank, and we were taking the benefit of treaty between India and Germany. But case unfolded. This case actually was in one of my employer's case. So the case unfolded later on, and it was decided by ITAT that the treaty benefit to the extent of 30% can be given between India and Germany, because India also has a treaty between India and Australia. So Indian Australian treaty benefit should be given for 20%. for another 20% India UK benefit should be given, since there was no treaty between at that time between India and Hong Kong. So no treaty benefit can be given, and the entire tax income is taxable in India. So that particular total payment of interest was split into 4 parts: India Germany exempt, India India Australia and payment, India Australia proportionally the treaty was applied, India Australia, India UK treaty applied, and because Hong Kong at that time there was no treaty, so entire income which was paid to a Hong Kong bank was taxable in India, and we were held as an assessee in default for that case. So, but apart from that, we had made in another case we had made payment to a bank branch of Indian Bank branch in Dubai. So no tax was deductible. That was held also in that case. So now it comes to procedure for remittance. How to make the remittance? The remittance can be made on the basis of a certificate from the chartered accountant. Circular number 759 of 1997 has allowed the remittance to be made on the basis of a certificate from a chartered accountant, practicing chartered accountant. So the form number CA and 15 CA and CB you must be well aware of. I'm not going to elaborate it more because I have a little less knowledge on section 15 CA/CB being in the corporate sector, because my team used to do this entire work, and they will come to me only on the aspect whether payment is required to be TDS is required to be deducted from the payment or not. Rest of the remittance work vagara, it was being done by the team, so I am little less knowledgeable on that. So I think you people will forgive me for this. Then comes the another section, that is section 206 AA. As you know that section 206 AA has been brought up in chapter 17B, and it provides that in case the person to whom the payment is being made doesn't provide his PAN number, in that case the tax would be deductible either of the three, which is the higher of the three: rate specified as per provision of the act, rate or rates in force, or rate at the rate at or at the rate 20%, whichever is higher. So in case the person is not providing me the PAN number, I need to deduct 20%. If it is high, if his tax rate is more than 20%, I need to deduct more that rate. Like in case of lottery, etc., the rate TDS is 40%. I need to deduct 40% in that case. In any case, it will be 40% even if he provides TDS rate PAN number. But if he is not providing PAN number, then in case I have to deduct at 40%. Similarly, when I am making a payment to a non-resident also, if he doesn't provide me the PAN number, the rate which is more which are higher, I need to deduct at that rate, not the rate which is prescribed as per income tax, either 20% or the income tax or the treaty rates. Hope I am clear here. So section 206 AA applies to any sum or income paid, whether gross amount or net amount is taxable. Or 206 AA will be triggered only when the income is taxable in India. If we are able to conclude that the income is not taxable in India, there will be no TDS or no grossing up of, because there is no TDS, there will be no grossing up of that income. And similarly, in the local cases, it has been in case of resident payment made to a resident, it has been decided by the Kerala High Court that if the person to whom the payment is being made has an income which is below the taxable income, then there is no need of a PAN number. So the 260A will not apply. But this does not apply to a non-resident, because in case of non-resident, if his income is treated as taxable in India, it will be even 10 rupees. So now the question arises, as we have already discussed, that we have to apply the higher rate, whichever is higher rate, 20% or the taxable or the as per Income Tax Act. But in case of no PAN, but what happens if section 195(2) certificate has been issued and the person is not able to provide his PAN number? At what rate we need to deduct TDS in that case, whether at the rate which has been mentioned in the certificate or 20%? So can somebody answer this? In case a certificate under section 195(2) is issued, but payee doesn't have a PAN number, in that case, what would be the tax rate? Any guesses, sir?
I think 20%.
20%.
My take is different here. Because certificate, you are right, it should be 20%. But can somebody get a certificate under section 195(2) without a PAN? So this query is not relevant here, in my opinion, because he will not get a certificate without PAN number.
Yes, yes.
I need to provide a PAN number to the assessing of to the. Or can there be a situation where PAN number, because 195(2) is applied by a payer from India, non-resident. Oh, sorry, resident. So can a certificate be issued without a PAN number of the payee? I'm just asking a question, sir. Maybe it clarifies my issue, my mind also.
No, probably the lower rate of deduction certificate can be applied by both either by the payer or by the payee.
Yes.
But I think in the case of non-resident, I think the department will not issue on the request of payer.
Payer, okay. Will not issue at the request of payer.
I think so. I have not come across anything on that part, but I think so. It will not be issued on the request of a payer.
No, but there is a provision in the Income Tax Act for providing.
Yes.
But my question is, if the payer is not able to provide the PAN number of payee to the Income Tax Department, they will not issue a certificate. This is my view.
Right, I agree with you, because that is why they are giving the benefit by way of DTA.
Correct, sir.
Correct. And in DTA, it has to be lower of the two.
So in my opinion, if a certificate under section 195(2) is issued, in that case, definitely the PAN number would have been provided to the Income Tax Department, unless they will not issue the certificate. Because if they issue the certificate without PAN number, then tomorrow how will they assess the income of that person?
Right.
Without PAN. So
because in that case, if the PAN number is there and we deduct the full tax of 10% or a lower tax of, let's say, 5%, then that particular payee needs to file his return of income in India and get it assessed.
Correct.
And the payee will be issuing a certificate to them, the payer, sorry, and the payee in that case will claim the benefit of it.
Correct. So in my opinion also,
it is something like that, somebody coming from the overseas and opening a branch office or license office in India and getting a temporary registration in the GST and the Income Tax Act.
Correct. So in my opinion also, without PAN number, it will not be available. But in case if there is a case where the 195(2) certificate has been issued without PAN number, then definitely the tax rate would be 20%, not the rate mentioned in the income tax certificate, because again the compliance of 206AA is not there. Do everybody agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So grossing up. Now we come to section 195A, the grossing up of income tax. Suppose, and which is happening a lot in India, that the companies, the commercial department of the companies which are negotiating with the foreign vendors, they basically tend to pay the amount of tax, the amount net of tax. Matlab, the vendor says that I'm not willing to bear any cost of tax which you deduct from my payment. So you kindly give me 100 rupees. I have agreed with you for 100 rupees for this particular services. So you need to pay 100 rupees to me. Whatever income tax needs to be deducted, you need to bear it. So in that case, if that happens, I need to gross it up, the amount, because government basically saying that you are making payment of tax on behalf of the non-resident. So you are giving him 100 rupees net of taxes. So whatever taxes you are bearing, that is also an income of that non-resident. So you need to pay tax on that also. So 100 rupees, TDS is 20 rupees. I needed to pay 80, but he wants me to pay 100. So I need to gross up it. How to gross up? 100 divided by 80 multiplied by the amount, which amount I need to pay, say $1,000. So in place of $1,000, in that case, I'll be ending up paying $1,250. So, and $250 will go to the government of India, $100 will go to the party net of taxes. So this is how the grossing up is to be done. And in all the cases where the payment is to be made net of taxes, grossing up is required. So the question arises whether grossing up is required in the case tax is deducted under section 206 AA. Yes, the answer is yes. So now we come to the benefit of treaty. The provision of benefit of treaty are given under section 90 subsection 2 and section 90 subsection 4. Section 92 says that in case India has a treaty with the country where the non-resident is a non-resident payer is a resident, in that case the treaty benefit will override the benefits of tax rate of the Income Tax Act on the income which are chargeable to tax in India. So in that case, we need to provide the benefit of the treaty. But section 90 subsection 4 has also provided that to claim the benefit of DTA under section 90 subsection 2, a non-resident needs to obtain a tax residency certificate from the tax authorities of his country of residence. So now it is a mandatory on the part of the assessing officer from the payer to obtain a tax residency certificate from the payer of the payee. So to ascertain whether he is making payment to the person to whom the treaty benefit applies, basically. So this becomes a very relevant document for making payment. So what are the documents required in case of payment being made? One is tax residency certificate, we have already discussed. Another is that in case of that person to whom the payment is being made has a business connection in India or a permanent establishment in India, then he will be treated for that particular, and then for that particular permanent establishment he will be treated as a resident for that purpose. So any income being paid from India to a non-resident which is effectively connected to that that permanent establishment will also be taxed in India as a resident income or as a normal income. He has to file a return of income. So I need to ensure as a payer that the person to whom I am making the payment doesn't have a permanent establishment in India, or even if he has a permanent establishment in India, this income which I am making payment to him is not effectively connected to that permanent establishment. So what is effectively connected uh, uh, to the permanent establishment means, suppose that person has a branch in India, or that is a permanent establishment. The person, the employee of that branch, seeks an order from me. He is actively engaged in basically seeking this agreement, this particular income from me, and he secures all the uh, 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 he secures all the agreements. He signs everything, but in the end he makes a small line in the agreement that the payment will be made to my head office in, say, in Singapore. But whether this income belongs to Singapore, this income belongs to basically this permanent establishment in India. It is effectively connected with that, because all the orders has been procured, or all the documentation has been done, all the negotiation has been done by this firm. So before making payment to a non-resident outside India, I need to ensure that there is no P, either no P, or if there is a P, this income is not connected to the income of that P. This was a case, very effective case in the case of Daikin air conditioners. Daikin has a subsidiary in India, and Daikin has a business subsidiary in head office in Japan. So what basically happened, that a huge quantity of orders were supplied from Japan company to Indian customers, and it was contended by the Daikin Japan that these incomes are not effectively connected to the income of the permanent establishment in India, because we have directly procured it. Whereas the truth was that everything was done by the Indian subsidiary, and the order were just dispatched from Japan, and payment were made to the Japanese company directly by the Indian customers. So in that case, it was held by the court that all the income are effectively connected to the permanent establishment in India. So the entire income earned by the Japanese company from the Indian orders would be taxable in India as a permanent establishment. So this was the case where sales and purchase is connected, but there may be services also. There may be cases where the services may also be effectively connected to the yeah, permanent establishment of a foreign entity. So we need to ensure that we need to take a no P certificate, or a certificate stating that this income is not treated, because beyond that we cannot do. So we are expected to do at least this much of exercise before making the payment. So next is Form 10F. We need to obtain a Form 10F, that is Section 90, Section 5, and this 10F is nothing but a self-declaration on the letterhead of the party, saying that what is his status in the country of his residence, nationality, assesses tax identification number in that country, which is equivalent to PAN in India, period for which the residential status, etc., is applicable in the TRC, and address of in the country of residence. So these 4-5 informations are required. That is a self-declaratory information which can be given by the party. So another important document which is required is permanent account number. This permanent account number, in the absence of permanent account number, as we have already discussed that and everybody knows also that the rate would be 20%, despite whatever the rate is provided in the treaty or under the Income Tax Act. So now we go to another slide where I have tried to put in some cases, kind of payments which are taxable in India or not taxable in India. We have been just discussing it. say if the payment is made to a foreign party in clearing and forwarding for clearing and forwarding charges, which is paid outside India. So as you know, one of the important factors of taxation, basis of taxation, is the source of income taxation. So where the source is located. In the case of the clearing and forwarding business, which is located outside India, if somebody is helping me out in getting imports and he is working at the port outside India, and that port is basically, say, Hong Kong or Singapore. So at Singapore uh, uh, port, that person may be having a business in which is the source of income of that income. So in that case, it will not. So that source does not belong to India, although is serving India, but source doesn't belong to India. So, and there is no services provided in India also in this case. All the businesses being done at Singapore. So there will be no taxability of income in India in the case of clearing and forwarding charges. Suppose I am paying commission to somebody for procuring export business, the export business of my export business. So the the non-resident is having a commission business outside India. Again, he has no privity to the business in India. He has no business connection in India. His business is totally outside India. So in that case also, on commission paid, there is no taxability of that commission income will not be taxable in India, hence no TDS required. Consultancy services. The consultancy services are basically, there are two types of consultancy services. One is general consultancy services. Another is consultancy services which are making available any technical knowledge, etc., to the Indian company. So different treaties have different definition of consultancy services. Some have just plain vanilla um, um, definition, which says consultancy, managerial, or management services. Another has the consultancy, management, and other services which which provide, which make available any technical knowledge or expertise to the payer. So if we see the difference, if you see the treaty between India and UK, it provides that for qualifying as a consultancy services, the income, the payee should provide some knowledge, should make knowledge available to the payer. In that case, it will qualify as a consultancy services. In absence of make available, there will be no consultancy services provided, so not taxable in India. But if you see India-Germany treaty just provides any consultancy, managerial, or management services. That's it. So in that case, whatever services are being provided by a resident of Germany to an Indian resident will be taxable in India. So similarly, designing fees. If I am paying some designing charges for some designing fees, design, if that design is making available some technical knowledge, skill, etc., to me, I need to deduct tax, or otherwise not. In certain cases, like Germany and UK treaty example I have given, you know, there are some oil companies which are basically bringing people for drilling services or some drilling related consultancy. So if somebody is coming here in India and providing the drilling services in Indian soil, in that case, if his contract is more than 90 days or 120 days, depending upon the treaty, in that case, there will be a P creation issue here. So if the P is created, then the entire income of that P will be taxable in India. But if only consultancy is being provided from outside, and there is no visit to India, or even if there is a short-term visit to India but no machines are working, in that case, drilling related consultancy, again we have to see whether it is making available clause exist in the treaty or doesn't exist in the treaty. Based on that, we need to decide whether it will be taxable in India or not taxable in India. Engineering services taxable in India, because generally it is considered that engineering services will provide the um, um, provide the make technical skill or knowledge. Equipment rental, agar if I have taken an equipment on rental from an outside the country, and that rental, that equipment is working in India, the tax is required to be deducted from that in almost all the cases, all treaty cases. We had taken a equipment in one of the companies in from Germany, and we had paid TDS at the rate of 10% of that. Similarly, print media, electronic media advertisement. If I am making payment for advertisement in a print media outside or in a TV channel, etc., because the source of income is situated outside India, there will be no tax. But in case of internet advertisement, that will be taxable. There is a equalization levy provisions also in that case. AMC charges, if I am paying, it is taxable. Architectural services, taxable. Bandwidth charges, like bandwidth charges, this is the case of Bharti Airtel, which has basically taken some bandwidth charges from its one of the shareholders situated in Singapore. So it was treated, though, although bandwidth charges is bandwidth is provided under sea through undersea cable, but it involves a technical skill, and that's why that this will be taxable in India. So bandwidth charges are taxable. Brokerage charges other than for export order, taxable. Exhibition expenditure, if I am doing some exhibition outside the country and I have taken a space on rent, that will not be taxable. But if I have taken other services along with the exhibition space, then it will be taxable. Cargo handling charges, not taxable, as earlier I have told you on the first case itself. Reimbursement of expenses, if somebody claims as a reimbursement of expenses as payable by the payer to the payee, then we have to ensure that there is no markup on it, there is no profit element included, and the party, the pay has to provide me the original bills of the payment for which he is seeking the reimbursement. Suppose he is asking me to make the payment of travel, then he needs to provide me the hotel bills and also the travel tickets, etc. Then only I will be. हाँ जी.
इसमें एक क्वेश्चन है. Let's say the payer basically asks the payee to purchase, let's say, some few mobiles in let's say Hong Kong or let's say Germany or any country overseas, and that person purchases the mobile locally out there and submits to Rajesh ji. Rajesh ji takes that mobile, or Rajesh ji company takes that mobile for testing purpose.
Okay.
Right. Now this company overseas wants to claim the money back from India, from us.
Okay.
So will it be qualified a reimbursement, or then what all documents are required to be paid to make this payment overseas? There is no mobile per se as such which has come to India.
Okay.
So it can't be an import of the goods.
Yes.
But what that fellow is claiming is basically simply the reimbursement of the expenses.
No.
So how to make this payment being made overseas in forex?
No. Here the payment will be made like the original bills, which has been original bills or bills at least, which has been for by which the mobile has been purchased. Those has been sent for the testing, etc. outside in the lab in that country. Okay. So what he is claiming from me, that I have incurred certain expenditure on your behalf, and that is mobile. So you need to reimburse me for this expenses. Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
he will charge for that services, and he will give you that I have given you the mobile purchase services. Mobile purchase services along with that along with that
Original bill of the purchase.
original bill of purchase. But he has not charged anything. Suppose he has purchased the mobile bill for $100, so he will give me a bill of $100 and he will charge me as a purchase services, mobile purchase services. So
Okay.
I will not be charging any income from him, any TDS from him, because he has just given me a services for which he has given me the bills also.
And will that be applicable under for that? Will the payer is bound to have an GST on it under RCM?
GST on it? No. So in case if services are being provided under RCM, there will be a GST. Yes.
Because what we are writing on the that invoice of reimbursement is
services. We are writing
purchase services.
Services. Yes, correct. On RCM basis, yes, it will be there.
Okay.
So, sir, now I come to my last slide of the day. Royalty payment taxable in all cases. Fee for technical services. Normally, it is taxable subject to make available clause. If the treaty between India and the country of residence has a make available clause, then we will consider whether it is taxable in India or not. In other cases where there is no make available clause, it needs to be deducted. Training services, if the general training is being provided, no taxable, but there is some technical services which can be, technical training, etc. Then it is treated as making available a technical knowledge, so it will be taxable. Software, again, the software is basically, if a customized software is being made, then it will be taxable. And shrimp wrap, which is off the shelf available software, it will not be taxable. Again, if I am paying for lab testing charges for exports, etc., I have sent some sample to a lab outside the country, whether it is eligible for export or not, and there is a report coming to it, that is considered as a making available the technical knowledge, and it will be taxable in India. So I finish my presentation here, sir. And any questions, any further questions, please let me know.
From my side, it's perfectly okay, Rajesh ji. Guys, anybody wants to have some queries being asked from Rajesh ji?
Hello Rajesh ji, Meenakshi this side.
And Meenakshi, bataiye.
Yeah, from starting, I have already asked that. I just need to confirm on that part. If tax liability note rise in India, then no need to take essential document like
no, absolutely not required, sir. Not required, madam. Because first income has to be taxable in India.
Okay.
If income is not taxable in India, there is no requirement of obtaining. Like if you are importing some machinery, that income is not treated taxable in India. So you don't need any PAN number, any other certificate from the
provider.
From the vendor.
No, but in that case, the import of the machinery or import of goods, that will not cover on the services. So the TDS question does not arise on that part.
No. My point here is that if I am providing a services, which services are not taxable in India, it should be not taxable under the Income Tax Act, not taxable as per treaty. In that case, you need a certificate from people. Documents from the people, because if it is not taxable as per in the treaty, it means it may be taxable as per Income Tax Act. But if it is not taxable as per Income Tax at all, so there is no treaty comes into picture, because it is not taxable under the act. So it is not taxable under the act. So you need not, at least treaty के तीन certificate चाहिए, वो आपको बिल्कुल required नहीं है. और पैन नंबर भी नहीं चाहिए, बिकॉज अब आप जब आपका रेट ही 0 है, तो आप 20% पे कहाँ जाओगे आप.
ठीक है, वो इम्पोर्ट ऑफ गुड्स का हो गया। अब एक क्वेरी जो है वो बेसिकली मैंने जो आपसे पूछी थी वो
जी।
उसी पे मैं दोबारा आता हूँ। मतलब कुछ सर्विसेज बाहर से आ रही हैं, वो
हम्म,
रेंडर कर रहे हैं और वो कह रहा है कि भाई पेमेंट भी मुझे ओवरसीज में चाहिए,
हम्म,
लेकिन मैं आपको टीआरसी नहीं दूंगा, नो पी वगैरह वो सब कुछ नहीं दूंगा, फॉर्म 10F वगैरह नहीं दूंगा।
हम्म,
जो हमारी कंडीशन है कि डीटे का बेनिफिट लेना है जो भी है, मैं आपको सिर्फ पैन नंबर दे दूंगा।
हम्म,
आप मेरे को 20%, अगर मैं पैन नंबर नहीं दे पाता हूँ, आप मेरे एग्रीमेंट में लिख दीजिए इफ पैन प्रोवाइडेड देन 10%, इफ नॉट पैन प्रोवाइडेड 20%।
हम्म,
और आप मुझे अपना क्या नाम है टीडीएस काट के
हम्म,
एक सर्टिफिकेट इशू कर दीजिए,
ठीक है।
क्योंकि पैन नंबर है तो टीडीएस सर्टिफिकेट इशू हो सकता है,
हाँ जी, हाँ जी,
राइटली
बिल्कुल।
सो।
हाँ
और
जी।
वो कह रहा है कि बेसिकली उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव ये है कि जब आप मुझे, अगर मैं टीआरसी देता हूँ और आप विदहोल्डिंग टैक्स काटते हैं सेक्शन 195 में, आप मुझे पेमेंट ओवरसीज करते हैं, तो उस केस में मैं अगर टीआरसी देता हूँ तो मेरे को बेनिफिट भी मिल जाता है उस कंट्री में, उस
जी,
लोकल लॉज के हिसाब से, कि मैं उसका डिडक्शन क्लेम कर सकता हूँ।
ठीक है।
टीआरसी का रेलेवेंस बेसिकली यही होता है।
हम्म,
अब वो कह रहा है कि भैया वो सब छोड़ दो, मैं जब इंडिया में रजिस्टर्ड हो गया एसएससी,
हम्म,
क्योंकि मेरे पास पैन है, तो
हम्म,
आप क्लॉज ये डाल दो कि भैया पैन दिया तो 10%, पैन नहीं दिया तो 20%।
हम्म,
तो अब टीडीएस सर्टिफिकेट भी साथ में इशू कर देना, और मैं अपना असेसमेंट जो कराना वो करा लूंगा जैसे भी है। तो मैं आपको फॉर्म 10F की कोई डिटेल नहीं दूंगा, और वो बिजनेस नो बिजनेस रजिस्ट्रेशन इनडायरेक्टली जो बेसिकली नो पी होता है, मैं वो भी नहीं दूंगा।
चलिए
तो
मैं
हमारी
इसको,
लड़ाई बस उससे चल रही है इसलिए।
मैं आपको इसमें बड़ा थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट वो लेता हूँ सर, कि आपका मान लीजिए कि टीटी का रेट 5% है, ट्रीटी
हम्म
में टैक्स रेट 5% है, इंडिया में जो टैक्स रेट है वो 10% है
हम्म
इस सर्विसेज के ऊपर, जो भी सर्विसेज हम ले रहे हैं।
हम्म
ठीक है सर, तो जब मैं उसको 10, अच्छा, अब वो ये कह रहा है कि ट्रीटी का मुझे अगर 5% का बेनिफिट लेना है तो मुझे तीन
राइट राइट।
वो देने पड़ेंगे सर्टिफिकेट।
हाँ हाँ हाँ
टीआरसी
हाँ
चाहिए मुझे उसके लिए, अगर वो
हाँ
टीआरसी नहीं दे रहा है
हाँ।
तो मैं उसको 5% का बेनिफिट नहीं दे सकता।
राइट राइट। वो
वो
कह रहा
ट्रीटी,
मत दो मुझे,
हाँ
डीटीए
हाँ
वीटीए कुछ
हाँ
मत दो।
हाँ, ट्रीटी आउट हो गई ना, उस केस में ट्रीटी आउट हो
हाँ
गई
हाँ
वहां से। ठीक है। अब वो ये कह रहा है कि आपका इनकम टैक्स में ग्रॉस अमाउंट पे आप 10% काट सकते हो मेरा, पर
हम्म।
इनकम टैक्स में खाली एक सरचार्ज और एजुकेशन सेस और हेल्थ एजुकेशन सेस का एडिशनल है 10% प्लस।
तो हम उस एग्रीमेंट में ये लिख दें कि इफ पैन प्रोवाइडेड द 10% प्लस सरचार्ज प्लस एजुकेशन टैक्स, इफ नॉट प्रोवाइडेड देन 20% प्लस सरचार्ज प्लस एजुकेशन टैक्स।
साथ में ये भी, हाँ जी, और साथ में ये भी अगर कहीं पे एक लाइन लिख दें कि the party has not provided us the other documents, so treaty benefits are not being provided, we are deducting tax, मतलब tax will be deducted under as per the
नहीं,
provision
पर
of
उसका
income tax।
उसका उसकी लिखने की जरूरत क्या है
जरूरत
जब वो
नहीं है
पैन।
वैसे, जरूरत
हाँ,
नहीं है, बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हो आप।
क्योंकि क्योंकि जब डीटे का बेनिफिट देना है तो वो तो हमारी लायबिलिटी है, वो तो सीए ही आपका 15 सीए भी देगा ही नहीं आपको बिना टीआरसी और उसके
जी,
डीटे का बेनिफिट देना है तो।
करेक्ट सर।
ठीक है ना।
जी, सो
जी, थैंक्स फॉर योर टाइम एंड इट वाज रियली एनलाइटनिंग, एंड कुछ जो बेसिक जो कंफ्यूजन वगैरह होता है वो क्लियर हो गया आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन से।
जी,
और it was wonderful time. Thanks for your valuable time and giving us this enlightenment.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू फॉर एवरी
Thank you, sir.
पार्टिसिपेंट, थैंक यू फ्रॉम द कोर ऑफ माय हार्ट एंड
मैंने कुछ आपको प्राइवेटली मैसेज भेजे हैं, वो देख लेना आप।
जी सर।
ठीक है, ठीक
और
है।
सर मेरा नंबर
बस
स्क्रीन पे फ्लैश था।
हाँ, मेरे पास है आपका नंबर, मेरे पास नंबर सेव्ड है आपका।
ठीक है सर, ठीक है।
हाँ
Rajesh, Rajesh sir, I need to ask one question more.
या टेल मी।
Uh, yeah, if like a designing case or a construction case,
कंस्ट्रक्शन,
designing fees or construction fees
ओके,
charges, right? In the designing fees, people not come in India. They are only providing the designing fees from the overseas country,
ओके,
but they will come to India to only verify
सुपरविजन।
their designing. So only for the 1 week or a uh, 2 week or a 1 month. So their
ओके,
PE would not be generated, but they are hiring a people in India itself
ओके,
to
सुपरवाइज,
to set up the designing or set up the designing in that company, particular Indian company. So
ओके,
in that case, their people PE would be like, because their people are not working for us; they are income generating for the overseas company.
yes, correct. Now I'll explain you, ma'am. Under the treaty between India and any country, almost all the countries, there is a provision that if the non-resident has a fixed place of working or fixed place available for him for working, whether he works it through Indian employees or he works through some expatriate employees, that amount that office or that space or that particular premises should be available to him for generating business. Then it will be, and that period is more than 90 days or 120 days or
80 days.
days, whatever the condition in that particular treaty is. In that case, it will be treated as a permanent establishment. So in your query, ma'am, when the person is not traveling himself, or the company is not sending for more than 90 days, 120 days or whatever, in that case, if it is making a or establishing a particular space for within that company itself, that particular confinement of that space will be treated as a permanent establishment. And because these employees are working on behalf of overseas company, that means that space is available to him for generating income. So that will be treated as permanent establishment.
And that in that case, tax liability would be?
And the tax liability would be whatever income has been generated from this permanent establishment, that will be taxable in India, treating him as a resident in India. जैसे नॉर्मल टैक्स लगता है बिजनेस इनकम से प्रॉफिट निकाल के इसके ऊपर जो भी टैक्स आएगा at the rate of 40%.
So it means higher tax rate would not be applicable on that case.
No, in that case even there will be a higher rate, because
40%.
For 40%, the tax rate would be 40%
Yes.
on the income part, not on the payment part. So in that case, your client who is basically making payment should ensure that that company in India gets a certificate under section 197 for lower deduction of tax. Suppose I'll give you one example. Suppose the Indian resident is making a payment of say 10 crore rupees to that company, and that company is basically incurring 3 to 4 crore rupees on salaries. There are some admin expenses, some traveling expenses, and making a profit of 5 crore. That 5 crore will be taxable at the rate of 40% because it is a non-resident company in India, and the normal tax rate will apply. And the Indian company has to deduct 2 crore rupees of tax on entire 10 crore. So at the rate of 20%. And suppose the income of that company from this operation is only 1 crore. So they have to pay tax on only 40 lakh rupees in the year. So in that case, out of 10 crore, only 40 lakh is required to be deducted.
You mean to say if he does not take the low rate of deduction certificate,
yes,
then definitely 40% on 5 crores becomes 2 crore.
Yes.
That the payer will be deducting and withholding tax and giving the balance payment to them.
No, sir, no. Let me tell you. If I'm coming again, 10 crore रुपए का पेमेंट हुआ, उसके अंदर कंपनी को 5 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट है, तो उसको यहाँ इंडिया में 40% मान लेते हैं, अभी सरचार्ज वगैरह भूल जाता है, तो 2 करोड़ का पेमेंट करना है टैक्स का. इंडिया में उसको रिटर्न भी फाइल करनी पड़ेगी, 2 करोड़ रुपए का प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट भी 5 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस भी बनाना पड़ेगा, कंप्यूटेशन भी बनानी पड़ेगी, सारा काम करना पड़ेगा. और उसको 190, बिकॉज उसका टैक्स बनता है इंडिया में 2 करोड़ रुपए, तो उसको 197 में जाके सर्टिफिकेट भी लेना चाहिए, ताकि वो अपने पेयर को दे सके और बोले कि 2 करोड़ रुपए काट लो मेरे टीडीएस, क्योंकि हिज लायबिलिटी इज मेट नाउ इन इंडिया. बट अगर वो सर्टिफिकेट लाके नहीं देता है, देन पेयर हैज टू डिडक्ट टैक्स एट द रेट ऑफ 40% फ्रॉम एंटायर 10 crore.
10 crore.
Because he doesn't know that how much is the income out of this 10 crore. Same cheese happened in one of the vendors from South Africa, which came to India and provided some services here in India to the tune of 1500 crore, but he did not provide that certificate under section 197 to us for few months, 2-3 months, because आप जब भी अप्लाई करते हो तो 2-3 महीने लग जाते हैं मिलने में, and we were making payment at the rate of around 120 crore every month and deducting 40% out of it. Later
Oh.
on he begged. Later on he got the certificate at the rate of 6%, and then we started deducting 6%. And these are all my personal experiences, sir.
अच्छा, इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट ने आपको कहने का मतलब है कि जो 5% बना,
जी
5 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट आया तो उन्होंने 50% उसका मान लिया,
100
10
का
करोड़ में से,
10 करोड़ का 5 करोड़ मान लिया।
हाँ 5 करोड़ मान लिया, तो फिर उस पे आपने 40% ले लिया इफेक्टिवली।
हाँ जी,
तो अगर मैं 2 करोड़ देखूं टोटल का 10 करोड़ का, तो 20% हो गया।
20% हो गया जी, हाँ
तो
बिल्कुल।
वो लो रेट ऑफ टैक्स उस हिसाब से उन्होंने कैलकुलेट करके
हाँ
दे
जी
देगा।
बिल्कुल।
And sir, if we deduct any TDS on overseas companies, so can overseas company can claim their tax in their country itself?
No, in case of permanent establishment, with the tax will be paid in India. Then whatever, because he is a resident in his country, so his income, Indian income, will also be added to the income which he has earned in income tax return in his country. Then whatever taxes has been paid in India, that will be credited to, will be given a credit of whatever taxes he has paid in India. Suppose
So
2
that
crore
depends on the law of the country.
law of the country,
Country.
definitely, matlab, I'm just talking general law of the country, and also his taxable income in that country. Maybe he is earning any profit in India, but he may be incurring a loss in Australia. So after even Indian income, he has a loss, then he will not be getting any credit of it. He will not get any benefit of it, because he will get benefit only to the extent he is offering that income in that country, and that income is taxable there. But if he is incurring a loss on or a overall basis, this 2 crore is lost.
Basically, in a way, he will not get the refund out there.
He will not get the refund. Any Indian will also not get the refund, sir. No refund. Certainly.
And the last question, if
Yes.
software customized, then TDS would be deducted as per the
Yes.
DTA. If
Yes,
software
yes.
is shrink wrapped, then no TDS would be applicable. Am I right?
Yes.
And no document will be
No
asked.
document, because in that case, because it is not taxable in India.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. Thank you so much for participating and making
Thank you.
this conversation so lively. I'm thankful to everybody who has joined, despite
Yeah, pleasure, sir.
despite me being a stranger. I just sent the mail and
नहीं सर, आप ऐसे क्यों स्ट्रेंजर कह रहे हो सर? आप
नहीं
ये कम्युनिटी के मेंबर हो सर।
नहीं, I am member of that, but at least we were not knowing everybody each other personally. But now I think I have a face at least. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you so
Really
much
appreciate.
for wonderful. Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you जी.
राजेश जी, डिस्कनेक्ट कर सकते हो आप।
Okay जी, thank you so much.
Thank you.